convert fear into curiosity.
What do you mean? Explain.
See, everybody has fear. It's guaranteed hai.
Agreed.
Some people have a very different reaction to fear. Most people have a reaction where people convert their fear into curiosity. कि देखते हैं क्या होता है, जाके देखते हैं, करते हैं, right? Let's say people who do adventure sport, are they not fearful? They absolutely are. But there is this curiosity.
In the next few minutes, your entire understanding of anxiety and risk is going to change. Because real achievers don't lack fear. They have mastered a hidden psychological mechanism that converts terror into pure curiosity. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to rewire your nervous system to stop treating threats as a signal to freeze and start treating them as information to build the life you actually want. This is the mindset
Everyone
shift
on
that
Earth feels
changes
fear.
everything.
Everyone on Earth feels fear. That part is not rare. What's rare is what happens in the 2 seconds after. Because right there is the gap between the fear hitting you and you reacting to it. There's a fork in the road. Most people never even notice they are standing on it. Most people take one of the 2 paths. They run or they freeze. They go quite shrink, retreat into shell and call it being careful. But a small number of people, when fear shows up, they do something else. They don't run and they don't freeze. They lean in and say, wait, what is that? And let's go see it. And this is not bravery. You were taught about in school. It's a conversation. Fear walks in the front door and the curiosity walks back out, wearing a coat called fear. Once you see this mechanism, you can't unsee it. It's the actual hinge that most extraordinary lives swing on. Fear becomes curiosity. In 2016, neuroscientist Dr. Jane Joseph put free solo climber Alex Honnold into an MRI machine. A man who climbed 3,000-foot rock, no rope, no margin for error. She showed him a stream of disturbing, fear-inducing images. A normal brain lights up like a Christmas tree or in the scan, but Honnold amygdala, the brain's alarm bell for the fear, stayed almost completely dark. The easy headline was, his brain is broken. And that's not quite right, and it matters the why. Honnold and others who have studied the case since point at something more useful. The same dampened response shows up in the people who have spent years in deliberate exposure. Meditators, climbers who have logged thousands of hours approaching the exact thing that used to terrify them. The wiring can be inherited. It can be built once, repetition at a time. That's the real mechanism behind fear into curiosity. It is not a trait you either have or don't. It's what happens when you approach the same fear enough times. That your nervous system stops treating it as a threat and start treating it as information. Every time you choose to walk towards the thing that scares you instead of away from it, you are not being reckless, you are doing the rep. Risk with judgment, not gambling. In 2007, 2 broke roommates in San Francisco, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, can't make rent, a design conference is coming to town, every hotel is sold out, and Gebbia happened to have 3 air mattresses sitting in a closet. They put the mattresses on the floor of their apartment and charged strangers $80 a night to sleep on them. From the outside, that looks absurd, but from inside, it wasn't a gamble. They had already tested the smallest possible version of the idea before risking anything real. They knew exactly who their first customers would be because their customers were arriving in their own city. for a conference they could see on a calendar, and they knew precisely what they stood to lose if it failed. Mostly a weekend. Nothing they had not already lost. That's the actual line between a great risk taker and a gambler. A gambler is chasing the feeling of the bet. A calculated risk taker has done homework nobody else bothered to do. So what looks like a coin flip to everyone watching is a bet they understand better than the market does. Attraction to risk is not what separates people. Judgment applied on top of it, the attraction actually does. Here is an uncomfortable pattern. Once you look closely at people who sustain extraordinary output for decades, not just one good year, people who need motivation from the outside, a quote, a hype video, someone cheering, are on average the one least likely to sustain it. People who are running from something, a version of themselves they refuse to become again, a place or their identity or something they fear or some trauma they are having or they never said out loud, almost never ask for motivation. They are running from the fuel inside. It doesn't switch off when they hit the goal because the goal was never really the point. Michael Jordan won 6 champions, and by his own account or his teammates, he was still finding a new reason to feel disrespected, real or invented decades later just to keep the engine lit. This is why some of the most driven people you'll ever meet look from the outside like they are never satisfied. They are not chasing a finish line, they are outrunning something. They are escaping from the past. They are escaping from the trauma they had. They are escaping from the place. They are escaping from the identity. They are escaping from the look, the behavior they had, the discipline they had. They're escaping from it, and the finish line keeps moving because the thing behind them has not stopped either. Here is an uncomfortable pattern. Once you look closely at people who sustain extraordinary output for decades, not just one good year, people who need motivation from the outside, a quote, a hype video, someone cheering, are on average the one least likely to sustain it. People who are running from something, a version of themselves they refuse to become again, a place or their identity or something they fear or some trauma they are having or they never said out loud, almost never ask for motivation. They are running from the fuel inside. It doesn't switch off when they hit the goal because the goal was never really the point. Michael Jordan won 6 champions, and by his own account or his teammates, he was still finding a new reason to feel disrespected, real or invented decades later just to keep the engine lit. This is why some of the most driven people you'll ever meet look from the outside like they are never satisfied. They are not chasing a finish line, they are outrunning something. They are escaping from the past. They are escaping from the trauma they had. They are escaping from the place. They are escaping from the identity. They are escaping from the look, the behavior they had, the discipline they had. They're escaping from it, and the finish line keeps moving because the thing behind them has not stopped either. And here's where I have to stop hyping you up and be straight with you, because this determines whether this mindset builds a life or everything burns out down. Psychologists who studied elite performers use a framework called the dualistic model of passion from the researcher Robert Wellerand. It splits this drive into two versions. They look identical from outside, they behave completely different on the inside. Harmonious passion, intense, consuming, all in, but the person is still driving it. And they call away loose, rest for a week, and their sense of self does not collapse. And obsessive passion, the same intensity, the same output, except the activity is now driving the person. Self-worth gets welded to performance. There is no version of enough. Rest feels like guilt inside of recovery. Obsessive passion produces extraordinary short-term output. It also reliably produces burnout, damages relationship, and people who win everything and still feel like they are losing. And if what's underneath the drive feels like focus and more like intrusive, anxious throughput, then only quiet down, only you complete some repeated actions. That's not a competitive urge, that's worth being honest with yourself about and worth getting real support for, not something to try to install on purpose. The people who build something extraordinary across a lifetime, not just a 5-year sprint, figure out how to convert the second kind of fire into the first. Same intensity, different relationship to it. The conversion is actually skill here, harder than this risk taking, harder than the fear work. So here's the mechanism laid out plainly. Fear becomes curiosity when you approach it enough times that your nervous system relearns it. Risk becomes an edge when judgment sits on top of appetite instead of replacing it. Escape becomes fuel when there is something behind you that won't let you stop. None of it compounds into a life instead of burning you out in 5 years unless you stay that one driving it. This was never personality some people are born with and others are not. It's a set of mechanisms, which means it's trainable. Here's where you start. A weekly practice, not a one-time exercise. 10 minutes, same day, every week. Write it down, don't just think it. 1. Name 3 avoidances. List 3 things you are currently delaying, dreading, or quietly avoiding. A conversation, a decision, a skill, a trait, or something which is very important in your life and you are avoiding it. A skill you haven't started because it scares you. And the 2, flip each one into a question. Frame a question for everything you care about. For each avoidance, ask, what would I actually learn if I walked towards this instead of away from it? This is not positive thinking. Reframing anxiety as curiosity is a documented technique. I am anxious and I am curious are almost the same feeling in the body, wearing a different label. And the 3, run the judgment filter before acting. Is this reversible if it goes wrong? Or what do I know or have access to that most people attempting this don't? What's the smallest version of this I can test before going all in. If you can't answer all, at least two of these with something concrete, you are gambling. Yes, you are gambling, not taking a calculated risk. 4. Pick the smallest one. Move within 48 hours. Not solve it, move towards it. Send the message. Book the call. Open the account you have been avoiding, or whatever it is. Pick the smallest one and move for it. Move towards it. The 5. The honest check in. Do this last every time. Ask yourself, this week was I building because I wanted to, or because I was afraid of what it means about me if I stopped? There is no wrong answer. You are not scoring yourself, you are collecting data. Run this every week. In few months, you won't need this sheet. Approaching instead of avoiding will just be how you are built. It was never about being fearless, it's about who gets to decide what happens in the 2 seconds after the fear shows up.